Hey there everybody, I'm here today with Coach Ant, and he's going to be helping me show you guys the ins and outs of attacking an open turtle. We've spent the last couple weeks looking at dealing with a closed turtle when our opponent balls up really tightly, and we've seen that we can attack a closed turtle by attacking their balance, by off-balancing them side to side. And then we looked at preventing our opponent's closed turtle escapes. So when we have an opponent who's in closed turtle, what are the most common escape strategies they're going to employ, and how can we intercept and prevent those? Now we're going to move on to attacking an open turtle, and because the turtle is open, we're generally not looking to break them down like we were in a closed turtle, but we're looking to insert our limbs as wedges right away. Let's start getting to it. Ant, I'm going to have you an open turtle face the camera. So in an open turtle, you see Ant's arms and elbows are out wide for base. Oftentimes his knees are a little wider for base. And you'll see that because of this wide turtle position, if I try to use the same attack strategies I used at a closed turtle, it's really hard because he's super stable. He's got a very wide base of support. Okay? However, it becomes very easy for me to start putting limbs inside, and I can start breaking down an open turtle right away. We'll go into that in a little bit. Remember, if Ant takes a closed turtle, now Ant is defending the inside position. So Ant is very strongly defending the inside position. I can't get any hooks in, but he's not defending his base at all, so I attack the base. In an open turtle, Ant is defending his base. If I go to attack his base, he's very sturdy. However, he's not defending and protecting his inside position at all. So I can start the action of putting hooks in, putting arms in, and breaking them down. We're going to see that there's a number of different ways that we can attack an open turtle. We can choose to insert our legs first and our lower body, and we're going to look at a number of ways to insert our legs first. And then we can go after strategies where we insert our arms and our upper body first. And there are many different ways we can do that. We're going to start with the legs, and then we're going to progress to the arms. Let's start with legs. So Ant here has taken an open turtle position. Okay, so I won't be able to off-balance him, but it'll start to be easy to put limbs inside. Now, one problem is if I just go to put limbs inside right away, and I start doing this, Ant can feel this, he can start balling up and defending, and he can start changing his turtle strategy. So one thing I like to do is try to off-balance him, and that's going to force him to base, okay? As I go to off-balance him, he's going to spread his base, he's going to hunker down, he's going to get heavy, and as he does that, that's going to create opportunities for me to start throwing hooks in. Okay? So let me do that one more time. So I'm here. I'm going to go to off-balance Ant in this direction. This is Ant's base of support. Ant's going to use his right knee as a base of support so he doesn't get thrown away or thrown down. When he uses that right knee, he widens. Let's rotate this a little bit. When he widens this right knee, rotate a little more, I think. This should be good. Don't move this arm too much. When he widens this right knee, it opens a space here, and it allows me to put my foot in. Okay, we can talk about putting the near foot in first or the far foot first. And then we'll talk about putting knees in first. So talking about putting feet in first, I go to off-balance Ant. He uses this right knee as a base, and so I can pick my right foot up off the floor, and I can insert it as a hook, straight in, just like so. So now I've got one piece of inside position, and I have Ant's right hip control. Now, when we go to attack the back, one of the first things we look to do is establish what's called diagonal control. Ant, can we rotate now? So with me having Ant's right hip controlled, my next job is to control this shoulder. So Ant can't turn in either direction. We always want to go after diagonal control. So I go through, I can either take a wrist grip. Okay, this is a good option. We'll talk about wrist grips later. Wrist grips are great. Or I can take a half claw grip, where I just come underneath the armpit, and if I can't reach the wrist, let's say the wrist is far away, I can hook onto a claw grip, as well. So I have my diagonal control, either through the half claw grip or through the wrist grip. Once I have my diagonal control, now we're going to set up a power half Nelson. In a power half, I'm going to take my other arm, I'm going to put my forearm, my elbow, right on the back of Ant's head, and I connect my hands. You can go the finger-to-finger grip, palm-to-palm grip, or a wrist-to-wrist grip. Now, I'm going to sag my body weight. Let's rotate just a bit toward the camera. Now, I'm going to sag my body weight off of Ant's side, putting all of my weight into my right elbow. With my weight going into my right elbow, my goal is to take Ant's chin and drive his chin into his chest as hard as possible. Not with the intention of hurt him. We're going to do this slow. I'm not going to do this fast and hard. I'm going to do this very slow and steady and hard. Okay, we don't want to hurt our partner's neck. So I come in here, I put my elbow in position. I connect my hands, finger to finger, palm to palm, wrist to wrist, they're all okay. I'm going to put my weight on Ant's head. As I put weight on the head, I'm going to sag off, and I'm going to use my right elbow to continue to drive Ant's chin all the way into his chest until I force him into almost a forward roll. Now once I get here, my left hand is going to initially take my half claw grip where I grab over the shoulder. So now if Ant tries to slide his head away from me, he can't because of my half claw grip. Now with my half claw grip, I'm going to lift his head up off the floor, slide my right arm underneath, and I have my seat belt. Let's rotate. And we end up in this position here. Now the last thing for me to do is to put this hook in. If Ant is still turtled, get this knee on the floor. Let's say he's still on that knee a little bit. I can continue to use my power half, crunch, crunch, crunch to get him off that knee. I lift, and now I'm ready to put my hook in. Ant's knee is going to be tight to his chest. So I have two good ways to put the hook in. I can either use a heel wedge, where I take my left knee to my left shoulder, so I can put my heel as a wedge in the pocket of his hip. And now as Ant keeps his knee tight to his chest, I'm going to use my heel wedge to drive his knee away from his chest, put my hooks in, and establish control. So that's one option when he's got this knee tight to the chest, is the heel wedge. One more time, he's got the knee up, I take my left heel into the hip, and I lock. Another option we have from here is a top hip scissor and an extension. From this position, the worry is that I have no control over Ant's top hip. So at this position, at this point, he might try to fight his way back to turtle again, putting that knee down, and I might start to lose the hips. Now from here, what Ant wants to do is take this arm between me and him, and now I'm completely off of his back. Now he's on top of me. So come back now. So I don't want Ant to be able to go back to his knees. So if I go for my initial hook and I don't get it, and I'm worried about Ant returning to his knees, one of the best things for me to do here is to lock a top hip scissor, where my leg goes on the outside of his hip, and I scissor my legs. Now Ant tries to fight his way to turtle. Good. He can't get this hip up. Get this hip up here. Right. It's not easy because I'm controlling it from the outside. Keep the knee tight to the chest. So I use my top hip scissor to stop him from turtling. And then when I'm ready to put my hook in, I'm going to use my top hip scissor to extend him out. I want you to keep your knee tight to your chest, man. I pull the knee away from the chest. I put my second hook in. And I have back control. So that is attacking an open turtle, putting in the near foot first. Let's look again. I'm here. First, I get him to spread his base a little with a little off-balancing attempt. And I put my hook in. Now I either go to a half claw grip or to a wrist grip. They're both good options. Regardless of the grip I use, I eventually want to break him down into an unathletic position. I can't let him stay here forever. If I let Ant stay in a turtle position, he'll eventually find ways to shut me off. So from this position, I want to break him down so he's no longer in an athletic position. One of the best ways to do that, anytime we have one hook in, is to establish diagonal control and then go into a power half. With the power half Nelson, I connect my hands together, putting my elbow on top of his head. So one elbow's under the shoulder, the other's on top of the head. Now I sag my body weight off to one side as I use my right elbow to drive Ant's chin in toward his own chest until I start to break him down. Now from here I immediately grab a claw grip to make, or half claw grip, I'm sorry. I grab a half claw to make sure that Ant can't get his head and shoulders away from me. If he goes to move away from me now, put your back on the floor. Hard with this half claw grip. I have the shoulder. Now I use the half claw to lift his head up, slide my choking arm underneath, and I lock my seatbelt. I establish an initial control over Ant's top hip using a top hip scissor. When Ant tries to recover to turtle, I have his hip under control. Now from here I have a choice. I can insert my hook by either extending to pull his knee away from his chest, or I can use my left heel as a wedge in the pocket of the hip and then drive his knee away. They're both great options. Now, that was inserting the near foot first. Next, I'm going to show inserting the far foot first. And it's going to be the same exact sequence of moves, just on the other side. So another thing Ant might do in order to keep his base, instead of widening this knee, he might stretch this leg all the way out to the side, all the way out, knee up off the floor, and start to lean kind of toward that side. So he wants to stay really heavy over there, so let me do it here. So you see, so when I'm here, I'm gonna go here, and I put all my weight toward that leg. So when they try to pull me to the right, it's gonna be really hard, because I got a lot of weight hanging out on this side. So I'm here, and I go to break Ant down, he widened that leg, yes, and now really hunker down on that left side. And now he's really tough to break down over here. But now it's so easy for me to take my left foot, come over, and now I'm just gonna switch sides. Now from here I go underneath and I establish diagonal control, and I use my left elbow to drive his chin to his chest, going into a power half. I set my half claw grip, my seat belt, my top hip scissor, and then eventually my top hook. So it was the same thing, but on the other side. One more time. I go to off balance him. I can't get him to this side, so I put this hook in, and I establish diagonal control. Now that I have diagonal control, I start crunching Ant's chin into his own chest, and I take this position here. I have my seatbelt, I have the top hip scissor, and now it's time for me to go in and put my top hook in. So I've shown you guys inserting the near foot first. I've shown you inserting the far foot first. Now, let's get on to another section where I insert the straight knee. Once I insert the straight knee and I go knee first instead of foot first, I have an option. I can either control his head and shoulders with diagonal control and take the back that way, or I can establish control over the legs and hips with a reverse tight waist, and I can take the back focusing on the legs and hips first. Let's look at both. So Ant has an open turtle. Once again, I try to off balance him. He spreads his knees a little bit, and I'm going to take my right knee, and I'm going to wedge it right here between Ant's elbow and his knee. Now from here, I can either go upper body, or I can go and focus on lower body with a reverse tight waist. We'll talk about both. First, let's talk about the seat belt. Okay? Now from the seat belt, let's rotate it. Actually, let's rotate the other way. I want to be able to look at the camera. So I have my knee in, and I have my seatbelt. So I have diagonal control. I have my right knee inside this hip, and I'm pointing my knee back in towards Ant's crotch. So I have some control of that leg. And I have a seatbelt. Now from here, I ride forward a little bit to take Ant's weight off of his heels, and I step my left foot in between his legs. Now from here, I'm going to reap back on that leg to get him to turn over, just like so. You guys see how I have his leg trapped? Okay, now I can extend my bottom leg and put the bottom hook in. Now this position looks familiar, doesn't it? Ant's going to suck his top knee to his chest. And what do? Well, we can establish an initial control using a top hip scissor, and then we find ways to put in our top hook, either a heel wedge or extension. So once again, I go to off balance Ant, he winds up, I insert my right knee, my straight knee. We'll look at a cross knee in a little while. For now, I'm inserting my right knee, the straight knee position. My right knee into his right hip. From here, I'm going to establish an initial diagonal control. Now with that diagonal control, I want to control his legs with 2 of my legs versus 1 of his. So 2-on-1 control. The strength of 2 of my legs versus the strength of 1 of his. I drive off my left leg, driving him forward so I can step my foot between his 2 ankles. Now watch how I'm going to use my left ankle to pull him back, pulling it down to the side, breaking him down like so I can extend my bottom leg and set my hook. Let's do that again. So I'm here, I force him to ride forward, and then I'm going to use 2-on-1 to start to break him down and get my hook in. One more time, real slow. It's a complicated maneuver. This time I'm going to show it with my back to the camera so you guys can see what I'm doing with my legs a little more clearly. See if you'll face the other way, yeah? There you go. Nope, toward the belts. Now with my right knee in, and I have a seatbelt, I force Ant's butt off of his heels, and I step and I hook. Now from here, my left leg is going to pull and retract as I continue to sag off Ant's body until I get to this position here. Now my right leg can extend, and I put my bottom hook in. Now from here, you'll notice, let's scoot in front of the camera. Sometimes I land like so, where I'm not actually behind Ant, but I'm on his side. You see this? This is Ant's back. I'm on his side of him. You can put your foot on the floor and shrimp to realign yourself, but that loses control of your partner. So a better option is to use a knee shrimp, where I'm going to put my knee on his hip, and I'm going to use my left knee on the hip to shrimp to an angle, because then my knee is still controlling his hip throughout the process. If I'm here, and I put my foot on the floor, Ant might run up or turn to turtle again, and I'm starting to lose control. If I'm here with my knee, and I use a knee shrimp, and Ant goes to turn to turtle, I'm controlling his hip with my knee. So that's the benefit of using a knee shrimp rather than a standard shrimp. So I'm here, I use a knee shrimp to square up, and now Ant is hiding his knee to his chest. So we have 2 things I can do. I can either put in a heel wedge and drive the knee away from the chest, or I can cover the hip with a top hip scissor, and then I can extend and put my hook in. So that's a good option of inserting the straight knee first, and then establishing diagonal control, controlling the upper body. Next, I'm going to show you how to put the straight knee in first, and then we're going to really focus on his hips and his legs, his lower body. We're going to use 2 of our legs versus 1 of his. We're going to break them down in a similar fashion, and now we're going to put on an outside lockdown, going into a crossbody ride and using that to take the back. So I'm in here, my right knee goes in. Now, rather than going up to a seatbelt right away, I can come over here to a reverse tight waist. And I'm gonna have you face the wall over here, okay? And let's come back just a bit, right about there. Excellent. So when I'm in here, and I initially get Ant to open up his base, and I put my right knee in, one option that I have, rather than locking a seatbelt and getting diagonal control, is to take my right arm here into a position we call a reverse tight waist. Now with the reverse tight waist, I'm going to lock a grip that I believe in wrestling is referred to as a crotch lock. Okay, I apologize for the graphic name. I know the crotch isn't always the fanciest term, but crotch lock is the name that I've heard. So I'm going to grip right here with one arm going here in front of his legs, the other arm going here behind the legs, and I lock an S grip, a finger-to-finger grip. Now from here, I'm going to drive off my left foot, pushing myself back, just like so, and I have his one leg captured between my two knees. Now from here, I extend my right leg, I put in a hook, and I lock an outside lockdown. Okay, so I come from here, I extend my leg, I put in a hook, I figure four, and then I go ankle to ankle to ankle. Now from here I can release my crotch lock, and as I take his feet to the floor, I once again establish that same diagonal control. Let's rotate just a bit. So as soon as I release the crotch lock, take his feet to the floor, I look for the arm. Now if Ant tries to turn to turtle, he can't because of my diagonal control. I have control at this shoulder and at this hip, diagonally across the body. If Ant tries to turn to his right, my control over his left shoulder makes it impossible. If Ant tries to turn to his left, my control over his right hip makes that impossible. Now from right here, with my diagonal control, I have my half claw grip. Just like we did before, I lift his head up, I put my seatbelt grip in, I release my lock down, and I can perform a knee shrimp using my knee on his hip. He's probably got that top knee tight to the chest, but we know how to deal with that by now. We put in a top hip scissor just to establish an initial control, and then we decide how do we want to put our hook in. Are we going to use an extension, or are we going to use a heel wedge? And that's up to you. So one more time, we're looking at inserting our straight knee, but then we're looking at a reverse tight waist and a crotch lock to help us get to an outside lockdown, which will let us work into a crossbody ride, which will get us into back control. Okay, so reverse tight waist to a crotch lock, outside lockdown to crossbody ride to back control. One more time. Now let's have you face the wall again. So I initially start off here. Perfect, thank you. Off balance, he widens, my knee goes in, I grab a reverse tight waist. Now from here, I lock my crotch lock right here inside his legs. I drive off my left leg to pull his left hip up in the air as I sit back. As I do this, I pinch and capture his leg between my two knees. So it's a form of two-on-one control. Ant goes to move his right leg. It's starting to get controlled now. I extend and put a hook in. I put on my outside lockdown. Now, when I have the outside lockdown, I release the crotch lock, and I establish diagonal control for something called a cross-body ride. I'm riding across his body. I have his bottom leg controlled through the use of my outside lockdown, and I have the upper body controlled, the left side of his body, through the use of my half claw grip. So we call this a cross-body ride. There are a number of other ways of controlling this position. We'll see in the future there are ways to control it where I just have two hands on his one arm, and we'll see that I can climb to a half claw grip here, and this is also a good way to control it. Either way, as long as we have control over his left shoulder, either through the arm or directly by controlling the shoulder itself. We're good. With this half claw grip, I'm going to lift his head, seatbelt, knee shrink, and then my top hook goes in. If he's lazy with the left knee, my hook goes right in. If he's tight with the knee, I have to use one of the strategies we looked at earlier to clear that top knee out of the way. So those are two good options of inserting the near of the straight knee first. Now let's take a quick look at some options where I insert the cross knee first, and that'll do it for inserting the lower body first. When I insert the cross knee first, I'm actually really not focused on the lower body anymore at all. It's going to be more of an upper body focus. When I insert my cross knee, we're going to be really focused on his head and his arms, and we'll often go into crucifix attacks. I'm not going to show these for too long because we are going to look at these again in the future, but this will be a good chance for you to get your eyes on it for the first time and start to get familiar with the crucifix and how we can use it. And will you take turtle with your head toward the camera? So far we've looked at situations where I put in a near foot first, the far foot first, and the straight knee first. Now we're going to look at situations where I put in the cross knee first. So again, I have turtle. I put in my tight waist. I try to off balance Ant. He's spreading his base so he doesn't get tipped over. I come in with my left knee, separating his knee and his elbow, and we come to this situation right here, where I have my left knee in, behind the elbow. My right arm is wide for base here. Now, from this position, I like to take my right heel and bring it to my left knee. Okay, so I'll lock a seatbelt. My right heel will come to my left knee, and then I'll back heel to take his arm out and away. Now when he goes to use his right arm to defend his neck, no way. I'm going to start digging this arm in as a choke. Ant is obviously going to use his free hand, and when he starts doing that, pick your head up if you can. I'm going to look through to come in, and I'm going to seize control of his other defensive hand with my left hand. So I come in to choke, he defends, I seize control. And now we can really start to go on the attack. There's a number of things we can do from here. We can choke, and we can armbar, and we can take the back. And we can do these things from a prone position, from a face down position, or we can do it from a face up position, and I'll show them each. Let's look at the choke first. From this crucifix position where I have both arms trapped, I can come in with my right arm, I can start to thread through, getting ear to ear, putting my elbow on his sternum, and I can put in a choke right here. Now I just pull my elbow back toward my own hip, and we can put in a one-handed choke. The great thing about this is that Ant can't use either hand to defend. The only thing he has to defend is his chin. So if I can beat his chin, I'm gonna win. I'm here, I come in. I don't go straight across because then I go across the face. I come here at an angle, going down the jaw, toward the chest, toward the crotch with my hand. As I slip in, I bring my elbow into the sternum. Look at how, if I keep my elbow out here, I won't get a good angle across the neck. I need my elbow to slip inside and then to point back at Ant's crotch so I get my elbow tucked up nice and tight to the sternum, and so I get my elbow around the neck. Now from here, I cover my hand with my own chin, I pull my elbow, and we have a submission. Now let's say, during the course of this, Ant doesn't like what's going on, and he does the only thing he can really do to defend. He goes to roll. I'm here, he's gonna roll. I put my hand on the floor, I roll with him. And we end up just like this. Now I'm in a belly up crucifix. Just a bit, thank you. Now from here, same thing. Ant can't defend because both of his arms are trapped. I can still focus on the choke. As Ant tucks the chin, my hand comes in. I'm going down the body, trying to get my elbow to the sternum, taking my hand up here to his chin, or up here to his shoulder. My hand is up here on his shoulder. Now my chin covers my own hand, and my elbow retracts, and I get the submission. So we have a belly down choke, and we have a belly up choke from the crucifix. One more time. We're looking at inserting our cross knee first. I put on a seatbelt, and now I want to take his defensive arm out of the way. Heel to knee, retract that back, excellent. Now when I start going after the neck, Ant naturally defends. I take that hand out of the way and I control it. Now I can come in, putting his head to the floor, and I drive through with my forearm until my elbow gets to his sternum. Once my elbow touches his sternum, I lock my hand on the shoulder, cover my hand with my own chin, and then I retract my elbow for the finish. If at any point I'm setting this up, Ant decides he wants to roll, I roll with him, keep the arms trapped, and now I can go through, I can still get the finish from right here. So we can attack the neck from a crucifix, belly down and belly up. Let's look at attacking the arm. Here, I said I wasn't going to go into this in great detail, but I'm just giving you all the details anyway. So I come into my cross knee. I take my seatbelt. I heel to knee. I retract the arm back. Here. Now, from right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to triangle my legs, and I'm going to slowly shuffle my knees back as I sprawl and hip into the elbow. So I'm stretching this arm back, and I'm sprawling my hip into the elbow to get an arm bar. My left knee comes inside behind the elbow. I take a seatbelt. Heel to knee, retract the arm. If I want, I can even still take the hand. Now from here, I can even put my hand on the floor if I want for base. I just start shuffling, right knee back, left knee back, right knee back, left knee back. And as I continue to shuffle backward, put that arm in, I'm shuffling, 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 and I'm sprawling my hips into that arm as I lift his wrist up using my legs. Now, if at any point during this process, Ant doesn't like what's happening and he goes to roll, I'm going to roll with him. Once again. And we're here. Now, I can do a similar thing with an arm bar. I'm going to take my 2 feet, tight into his armpit, and I make sure that my leg that's closer to his head, in this case, is the one that's trapping the arm. You can also trap the arm with the other leg, but we don't want to do that because then we won't be able to take the back later. We'll look at that in a bit. So I'm going to use my right leg. Now from here,